back to our channel. The paper Foundation of Education has certain objectives, and we believe after completion of the paper or after going thoroughly through the paper, you will be able to understand the concept and the aims of education. There are some other perspectives also which help us to get a clear idea about education or what education actually means. And that's why after going through the paper or after completion of the paper, you will be able to get a clear idea about the philosophical foundation of education, how education is related with society or the sociological foundation of education, the psychological foundation of education, and how education is related as an investment for human resource development, and as well as how education is related as economic development process. So today let us begin with our unit 1, the sub point, the concept of education from ancient to modern, from the first unit, education as an evolving concept. Before discussing the meaning of education, let me ask you a question. What is the basic purpose of human life? Well, it is to make life meaningful, contented, and happy from two aspects: biological and sociological or cultural. When we go to discuss the biological aspect, in brief, we can say, as a product of genetic history and natural laws of the world, we, the human beings, make transformation of living conditions with the help of knowledge and intellectuality. And here education plays an important role. Then sociological aspect of life includes nature, customs, values, tradition, culture of social life, etc. And all these make life happy and meaningful. Without education, we cannot maintain both the aspects. Food, shelter, clothes are needed to maintain bio aspects, and to maintain our sociological aspect, we have to keep alive our social relation, modify our ideals, principles, and values, and make our social life systematic. Therefore, for preservation and transmission of all the specialities of these two aspects, education is the most powerful tool. Since the beginning of establishment of society till the era of globalization, the idea of education in human life has got a tremendous change. The present education system or evolution of education has included a long period starting from the ancient Vedic period, the Buddhist period, the Middle Age period, the pre-independence period, the post-independence period of education system, and the wholesome aspects of the 21st century education system. So, including all these aspects, we may discuss the meaning or idea or concept of education from four major perspectives: etymological meaning, analytical meaning, narrow meaning, and wider meaning of education. So, let us go through these four meanings in brief. Etymological meaning of education. The term education seems to be derived from the Latin derivation educare, educere, and educatum. Educare means to bring up, to train, to nourish. On the other hand, educere means to lead out. The first derivation implies that education means something to be imposed from outside, but the second derivation implies growth from within. In third view, the term education is derived from the Latin term educatum, which means the act of teaching or training. According to another view, education means leading out the inborn qualities, talents, powers, and virtues of the child, because there is another word, educo, where e means autumn and duco means I lead. Second comes to analytical meaning of education, where we are trying to make the meaning of education more clear by explaining its constituent factors in brief. The first one, education is not limited to knowledge imparted in schools. We cannot say that education is confined to the processes of giving knowledge to children in schools only, because It is a program goes on from birth till death. Second one, education is the development of child's innate power. While explaining the etymological meaning of education, we have made it clear that education is developing the native endowments or the latent virtue and perfection of a child rather than something forced into the mind from outside. Third, education as a dynamic process. Education is not a static but a dynamic process which develops the child according to changing situation or time. And according to some other educationists, education is a purposive activity where there is always some aim of life to which an individual devotes himself fully to get the target or to get the aim. Education as a bipolar process. When we say education as a bipolar process, we means one personality acts upon another in order to modify the development of the other. According to the great thinker Adams, the bipolar education has two poles. At the one end is the teacher and the other end is the child. So there is an interaction between the teacher and the child where the teacher, the former, tries to mold and modify the behavior of the child so that the latter develops his personality to the full. Education can be said as a tripolar process also, where John Dewey Persinan were the main advocate or the main supporter. According to John Dewey, education contains three poles, namely the teacher, the child, and the society. And these three factors actively cooperate in the efficient and successful working of the educational process. As the main purpose of curriculum is to socialize children or to input cultural values, that's why curriculum can or may also be included here for successful working of the education process. Then comes the narrow meaning of education. From the points given here, we can say that any consciously directed effort to develop and cultivate our powers may be called education. The experiences, knowledge, information imparted through educational institutions for immediate academic and material needs of life is called education. Here, education is a process in which and by which knowledge, thought, attitude, character, and behavior of the young are shaped within institutionalized system. And when we come to discuss the wider meaning of education, we can say each experience gained by human beings throughout their life to acquire wisdom and adjustment with self and society is called or may be called education. So it's not the communication of information by the teacher or acquisition of knowledge by the child. It's the total experiences of life for development of personality. That's why it is a continuous process of reconstruction of experiences towards more and more perfection in human life. In Rousseau's philosophy of naturalism, the wider meaning of education has been interpreted. Moreover, in Gandhi's definition, we can see clearly the wider meaning of definition, where he says education is the all round drawing out of the best in child and man, which includes body, mind, and soul. In the present era, or during the age of globalization, much importance has been laid on education as a process of commercialization and privatization. That's why, along with personality development, a concern for the development of a sense of internationalism is considered as a main function of education. As education has been accepted as a tool for human resource development and investment of human resource for national development, that's why the definition, aims, and purpose all have been imitated and evaluated on the context of international perspective. When education is attached with world trade or commerce, several ideas of education suddenly seems to become unnecessary. It seems that education has become a medium to earn wealth only. So, to bring back the qualitative standard of education, NEP 2020, the National Policy of Education, has planned a lot, which we can say light but tight regulation as well as implementation. In this vast journey from Gurukul to Digikul, NEP 2020 has emphasized on 9 aspects to acquire, which may be summed up as Navasutras, and where education will be a helping hand to create and facilitate the new generation with inclusiveness, equitability, quality, sensitivity, flexibility, lifelong learning, rootedness basically in Indian culture and society, synergy and interdisciplinary. So, with these 9 aspects of education, we hope that this will definitely help for development of intellectuality, mental and aesthetic development, development of insight and emotional stability of the youngsters. So, with the mission of the wholesome development of the new generation, various aspects of education have changed from ancient to modern period. So, those various aspects of education includes the aims of education, curriculum, medium of instruction, teaching strategy, discipline, evaluation system, teacher, learner, and school have changed from old to the modern time. And that's why we can say that the vast period which consists from the ancient to the 21st century, the meaning of education from ancient to the modern period have changed a lot, which is quite worthy to be mentioned as in NPE 2020 also. Thank you for listening and watching our pages. Hope for your cooperation and your comments will help us to improvise our channel for expansion of knowledge. Thank you again.